brown up some meat. I've got some veal roast, some pork, and some beef. And all I did was brown that in a little bit of olive oil. Then I cut it up into small pieces. And now I want to grind this up because we want the filling to be fine for the pasta. So to do that, you can either do it in a food processor or you can do it with a meat grinder. Now we want to grind up the meats. And you want to check that every so often just to make sure you're not over grinding it. And that looks good. Believe me, that's going to make about 300 cappelletti. I'm not kidding. So now for some seasonings, what we want is egg. So let's put 1 egg in. You know, you may need to put 2 depending on how dry the mixture seems, but I'll know that after I get most of these ingredients in. Then we want some Parmesan cheese. So here's some grated Parmigiano Reggiano. And with this lemon, this is a wonderful flavor in this soup, this grated lemon zest. So get a little lemon zest in there. You want about, a tablespoon, which is about what you'd find on 1 medium lemon. Then we want a grinding of fresh nutmeg. That's right, I said nutmeg. And then we want some parsley. And here we have some flat leaf Italian parsley. We just want to mince this up. And now this is something that you can do ahead, the meat mixture. You can make this a couple days ahead of time before you fill the cappelletti. Just going to mix it up with my hands. I washed them before you came over. And you want a fairly moist meat mixture here. You want something that's going to hold together. So if your mixture seems a little dry, you can add either a little bit of water, you can add another egg, you can add only the egg white if you want. But get it so that it's a good consistency, and you'll know when it kind of holds together, you see, like that, and doesn't crumble. So I know that this is good to go. Put some flour down on the board. I'm not going to use all of this, I'm just going to take some of it. I'm going to add the semolina over the top, add a pinch of salt, then mix this up so everything is well mixed. Then I'm going to burrow right down into this now to make the classic fontana. It's always fun to play with this. Now we add the eggs. And now we really got to get our hands into this. So you want to break up those egg yolks. Break them up until they're mixed well with the whites. And then you want to start adding the flour in. Now this is where it's a little tricky, because what you have to remember to do is make sure that the wall doesn't break. And keep taking the flour clockwise from the inside of the wall. Now I may not use all of this flour. I may use more than this flour. It all depends on the size of the eggs, how much flour I put down on the board, and how I'm feeling that day. So when you have it into a pasty consistency like this, well, then you have to get both of your hands into it and make a ball of dough. So bring in as much flour as you need to get yourself started, and you'll know by making pasta over and over if you have enough flour or if the dough is too hard. And this is always correctable, believe me. If you make too hard a dough, you can always add a little water to the dough, and that will just help smooth it out. Now, this is a useful tool when making pasta. Scrape up some of those pieces of dough now that are encrusted with egg and bring them in to the dough. So when you have the dough where you think it should be, then scrape up what's left and knead it until it's soft, taking a little bit of that flour and putting it on the dough. I'm going to get a little bit more flour now because I know that that's just sticking a little bit to my hands. And I'll know this consistency is right when it no longer sticks to my hands and I have a ball of dough that is uniform in color. I'm going in a clockwise motion in case you can't see this. A little bit more flour, and you need to do this for, about 5 or 10 minutes. You want to really work the gluten in the dough. And then you're going to have to allow this dough to rest, to relax the gluten. So once you have a nice soft ball of dough, then what you want to do is put it on a board with a bowl over it. And how do I know that's rested? It's softer than the dough that I started with. It looks beautiful. When I put my 2 fingers in there, those indentations stay. That's a nice relaxed dough. And you may want to knead it a couple times. And then you want to cut this up into small pieces because you don't want to work with this whole wad at once. So I like to cut it up into 4 pieces and work with 1 piece at a time. You want to make sure you keep those covered. And you want to flatten this out first before you put it through a pasta machine. If you're using a hand crank pasta machine like this, you just cannot take a wad of dough and stick it in the machine to try to thin it out because you'll strip the gears. Instead, take a rolling pin and just flatten it down some. Flatten it down. And you see how nice and stretchy this dough is. Not too much flour. It's just the right consistency. So you don't have to stretch it, you don't have to roll it much, but just stretch it down. And now we can put it through the pasta machine. And now on a hand crank pasta machine, you'll notice a knob on the side that has numbers that go from 1 to 7. It might go from 1 to 8. And you start on the lowest number and work up to thin the dough to the thinness that you want. We do not want this dough too thin, otherwise the filling will fall out. So starting on 2, I put the dough through. Then I move the knob up. I like to go in increments of 2, 4, 6. And as I move up with the number, I stretch the dough. So now I'm going to move up to the next number. If your dough is sticking as you put it through the machine, you need to add a little bit of flour on the dough, but not too much to make it dry. Continuing on, and I'll know the thinness of this dough is right when I can see my hand behind it. And this is just about where I want it. So you do all the sheets like that if you're going to be using a hand crank. And now here's our sheet of dough. Beautiful, silky. You can see my hand under it. And now we're going to use just a little cutter to make the classic shape. You can use a 1.5-inch round cutter like this. You could use a glass, whatever you happen to have. And all you want to do is cut circles out of the dough. Cut circles out, see, like that. I'll do 2 or 3 of these for you. But we have enough dough to do about 450 of these. So there's 3. Now we need to do the filling. So I take just a little dab. Look at that. You say that's not enough? Believe me, when you taste this, all the flavors are there of nutmeg, parsley, the meats, the lemon zest in fresh chicken broth. Delicious. Here's the technique. Fold it over like it's a half moon and pinch the edges closed. Then take these 2 ends and close them to form what is called the cappelletto, which means little hat. Again, fold over, make sure the edges are really closed. Now, if you've made a dough that is not too dry, you are not going to have a problem. But if you have made a dough that is too dry, this is never going to close. So there are the cappelletti. Now, what you need ready is some fresh chicken broth. Right here in this pan, we have chicken broth. Let me take my 3 little cappelletti that I just showed you. Perfect. and add them to the tray that I made for you earlier. Now you can do these ahead of time on the day of, or if you wanted to, these can be frozen. Once you put them on a cloth, on a cookie sheet, cover them with foil, just like this. Put them in the freezer. Then you can put them in a plastic bag when they're frozen. If you tried to do that now, they'd all stick together. Towel and all, they go right in to the soup. You give that a stir, put the cover back on, and 3 minutes later, the first course for La Domenica è pronto.